We've told you in the past that Democratic primary voters don't seem to have much of a choice this year. There are an awful lot of candidates in the race, but all of them seem to have identical far-left positions on the issues that matter, on immigration, climate change, gun control, the economy, you name it. Until yesterday, that was our view. And then we watched last night's Democratic debate, and we're going to have to revise that assessment. It turns out that not everyone in the field is a lunatic. We stand corrected on that. In fact, there are a couple of sane ones. Unfortunately, they're getting crushed. Watch, for example, what happened when Congressman Tim Ryan tried to remind his fellow Democrats that most Americans don't actually support open borders, much less giving free taxpayer-funded health care to foreign nationals who break our laws. Ryan suddenly became the most unpopular kid at the party. Watch.
Now, in this discussion already tonight, we've talked about taking private health insurance away from union members in the industrial Midwest. We've talked about decriminalizing the border, and we've talked about giving free health care to undocumented workers when so many Americans are struggling to pay for their health care. I, quite frankly, don't think that that is an agenda that we can move forward on and win. We've got to talk about the working class issues, the people that take a shower after work who haven't had a raise in 30 years. If we focus on them, we'll win the election.
Thank you, Congressman. I want to bring Congressman O'Rourke. Your response, sir?
Not a lot of applause. In fact, dead silence. It turns out the Democrats in the room didn't want to talk about working class issues or people, as Tim Ryan put it, who take a shower after work. Progressives wrote those voters off as disgusting a long time ago. They're poor, they're uneducated, and yet at the same time, they are deeply privileged. It goes without saying that they must be racist, every single one of them. Tim Ryan is probably racist for thinking about them. The modern Democratic Party has zero use for these kind of people. They've been excluded from the emerging Al Sharpton private equity coalition that defines the Democratic Party. So apparently is anyone who cares about what voters think. Several times last night, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders personally attacked any candidate who dared point out there might be a limit to how many unpopular ideas you can impose on a nation that's supposed to be a democracy. The very idea that you'd have to win popular support for your policies seemed to enrage them, Warren especially. At one point, they all but accused a CNN anchor of being a secret Republican plant. Probably the first time that's ever happened.
You do not support Medicare for all. Is Senator Warren correct? Do you just not lack the will to fight for it?
Jake, your question is a Republican talking point.
30 seconds.
Advertising tonight with that talking point.
What you want to do instead is find the Republican talking point of a made-up piece of some other part and say, oh, we don't really have to do anything. We should stop using Republican talking points in order to talk with each other about how to best provide that health care.
So what you just saw, that last clip, that really was the story of the whole night. Elizabeth Warren jumping up and down and barking at anyone who asked too many questions or seemed insufficiently left-wing. Now, not everything Elizabeth Warren says is wrong. We actually like her views on manufacturing and trade, for example. They're smart, and we've said so repeatedly on this show. We're not partisan, actually. But holy smokes, is Warren unbearable in a lot of ways. Pedantic, dishonest, nasty as hell. Watch how she treated former Maryland Congressman John Delaney, who's, by the way, one of the nicest men in politics, when he encouraged his fellow Democrats to make promises they can actually keep.
So I think Democrats win when we run on real solutions, not impossible promises. When we run on things that are workable, not fairy tale economics.
You know, I don't understand why anybody goes to all the trouble of running for president of the United States just to talk about what we really can't do and shouldn't fight for.
So if you're not a red-in-the-face, dishonest demagogue, Elizabeth Warren thinks you're a wuss. When Montana Governor Steve Bullock questioned the wisdom of open borders with free health care for everyone, Warren twisted his point into something completely unrecognizable. See if you can follow this.
You are playing into Donald Trump's hands.
A sane immigration system needs a sane leader, and we can do that without decriminalizing, providing health care for everyone.
What you're saying is ignore the law. Laws matter, and it matters if we say our law is that we will lock people up who come here seeking refuge, who come here seeking asylum. That is not a crime.
Laws matter? Elizabeth Warren, yes, of all people, just said that. And amazingly, nobody in the room dared push back against her saying that. There are a lot of weak men in the Democratic Party, not just on last night's debate stage. It's one of the party's biggest problems, actually. A normal candidate would have roasted her. Laws matter? Please. Elizabeth Warren's entire immigration position is built on the premise that laws don't matter at all. That's the whole point of it. If laws mattered, we wouldn't have 22 million illegal aliens living inside our borders. Democrats wouldn't be working really 24/7 to give amnesty to every single one of them, which they are. If laws mattered, we wouldn't have sanctuary cities. If laws mattered, Democrats wouldn't be sharing Spanish language guides telling illegals how to evade immigration enforcement. If laws mattered, Kate Steinle and Molly Tibbetts would still be alive. In a night of absurd declarations, Elizabeth Warren claiming the mantle of the law was the most incredible. But there was nobody there to call her on it. The moderates had all been gelded and silenced.